Hello, everyone. Josie here with Emotional Wisdom. I just finished session with the client, and I'm very, very, very inspired because this concept of what does it really mean to love yourself, the concept that I am trying to show people to adopt. What does it really mean to accept or love yourself? It's real. It works. It works. And I really, 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 really want everyone that is energetically gravitating towards this transmission or this connection, this live, to really take this information serious, because this works. It is scary to do. It is hard. It's not easy, but it works. So, what works, Josie? I have a method. Well, it's not just mine, but there's a method that I do for myself and that I teach and guide my clients to do. A method to really hone in self-love. You know, we bounce off this word, we just mention, oh, I love myself. I accept myself. Self-care. It's beautiful. There's many levels to self-care, many. But I really want to invite you to focus on a type of self-care that requires more vulnerability, first and foremost, and courage. Courage to be able to step and drop into your vulnerability. What do I do to practice self-love? I mentioned this already in another video. If you are a person that is suffering deep distress, pain, depression, sadness, something's missing in your life, you're being called to go deeper inside of you. You're being called to go within, no longer without, no longer use distractions, because it's only going to feel more painful to go outside, to fill this void you're experiencing. The time has come to go within. If you noticed, going outside is not helping you. It's not making you feel fulfilled. It might be temporary. You might think you feel fulfilled for a day or two or a week, yet you feel right back into, or you feel again that feeling of disconnect, loneliness, depression, isolation, anxiety, whatever it may be, any emotional discomfort. You notice you fall right back into that space. Well, yeah, because again, you're going outside to fulfill a void that only going within will be achieved. And I repeat, when you go outside to fulfill a void, it is not sustainable, especially if you're already in pain, feeling lonely, isolation, anxiety, distress, any form of discomfort. And if you're that person that tends to distract yourself, you know what I'm saying. If the distraction is stemming from because you don't want to be alone or feel alone or be with yourself, you need to pay more close attention to what I'm saying. How does it look like, from my level of perception, to love yourself, to accept yourself unconditionally, or to be in that journey of self-love? How does it look like to continue to embody real, authentic self-love? I had a session just now, and this concept that I implement in my life and in the life of the others works. This person knows despair and distress, emotional distress, knows how it looks like to feel anxiety, knows how it looks like to feel disconnection, separation, loneliness, despair. And finally, they're being flooded with love. They're finally able to receive love. Well, how does that look like, Josie? Well, like I said, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to feel easy. So you, my friend, who is experiencing these emotions, and you want an easy way out, I'm sorry, it will not be sustainable if you take an easy way to so-called healing. When you are truly, genuinely loving yourself, it means you have to go back in time and accept, rather said, admit to what happened to you in moments of your time that were very difficult to be in. Yes. Self-love, self-care, genuine, sustainable self-love and self-care requires that you go back into your past, your childhood, where you've experienced deep heartbreak, painful experiences, shame, rejection. It requires you to go back to that version of you that still remains stuck. Let's say you suffered physical abuse. That was your household. And so it was very painful, and you severed that experience from your consciousness. You tried to anyway. You split to survive. You try to hide that memory, right? To cope, because that's what happens. You need to hide that memory and to cope. So now you want to embody the aspect of you that believes nothing happened, everything's fine. And you've been fueling this identity, this mask to survive. I mean, it worked. It was able to keep you safe. It was a good coping mechanism. But then there comes a moment where you have to face that coping mechanism, because that coping mechanism no longer works, no longer sustainable. It's requiring a root healing. It's requiring a more sustainable approach. A more sustainable approach now requires you to go back into the root. You got to get to the root. And the way you get to the root is by literally going back to that time-space reality when you experienced that physical abuse. Why is this important? It is important because you no longer are pushing away, denying that happened, or denying that aspect of you that had to witness and live that pain and that torture, so to speak. By you going back and admitting and comforting the conscious you, the adult you, by you going back and comforting that aspect of you that had to live that truth, live it from the very beginning to the end, that still remains in that space, being shamed and denied by you, the adult you, right? Because that's what you're doing when you're trying to still keep it in a vault and a secret, or act like it never happened and gaslight yourself through the process, which is painful because that's still you. You're feeling what she's feeling or he's feeling, but you're only choosing to claim and declare and identify with the other one, the one that everything's fine, nothing's wrong. Not the whole truth. That's not the whole truth. So when you go back into, or you go back to that aspect of you that had to experience that pain, and the adult you consciously chooses to hold space for that aspect that went through pain, and you hold space and you foster it, you're essentially validating that that happened to you, meaning you're admitting that that happened to you. You're no longer pushing it away yourself and rejecting it and not validating it. You're actually taking it in. You're mothering it, you're fostering it, you're nurturing it by being present with that aspect that is still in pain. So when you're doing that and you're present with that aspect, you're holding space, you're journaling what you're remembering. That is you fostering and mothering that aspect of you. So when you do that, you then ask that aspect of you, that consciousness that you were once upon a time trying to push away, that memory that you don't want to remember because, oh, it's too scary and painful. So I'm push it away like it never happened. Your body will not respond in a way that it never happened. Your body's going to tell you the truth. Your body's going to respond. Your emotional body is responding from the truth of what happened to you in your childhood, in your past, in your developing years. Your body's going to respond from the truth, your emotional body. Your mind can trick you all day long and make you think and believe these stories. But the body is going to respond from the truth, the feelings. The feelings you're undergoing right now, they're messengers of a truth that you have that you're afraid to admit, that you're afraid to go back to, that you're afraid to see because it's going to get more real. So looping it right back, going back to the objective. When you take the courageous step to sink into your vulnerability and go back to your past that caused you pain, trauma, despair, and you admit that that happened to you, you're essentially accepting yourself right back. You're accepting yourself as part of you again. You're integrating. You're becoming more whole. And when that happens and you accept it, you're actually nurturing it. You're no longer pushing it away yourself. You're actually now shining light of consciousness onto it. You're no longer keeping it in the shadows, something that feels scary. You're actually shining light. And when that happens, when you're with it, holding space with that aspect of you in pain, you then ask it. That inner child, that child that specifically remembers that devastating past, whatever that may be. I use the example of physical abuse, The moment that you go back and remember and admit that that happened to you, also known as you accept it, that it happened to you. Doesn't mean you approve of it. It means you're now accepting that was my past. You're now accepting and loving and making that part worthy for love. You're now declaring that that part is worthy to receive love by you accepting it, that happened, or admitting that happened to you. Then what you do is you ask it, what do you need of me, the adult you, the aware you, the conscious you, to make you feel better? Trust me, that aspect of you that suffered despair, trauma, pain, subconsciously, or rather said, the answer will come to your consciousness. Your subconscious, your unconscious will communicate to your consciousness and tell you the answer of what it needs. That aspect will communicate through you by a message, a vision, a thought from the unconscious to the conscious. And you give it what it tells you it needs. If you make an art out of this, I promise you that you will get answers, visions you never expected. And what you're going to feel thereafter is a sense of acceptance. When we push away a memory that creates too much pain, a childhood memory that is, what you're saying to yourself is that part doesn't deserve love. That's what you're really saying to yourself when you're pushing it away. That part does not deserve love. Of course, we weren't trained to pull that trauma towards us or to pull that memory towards us and foster it and nurture it and basically validate it. But I'm telling you, because I am blessed to see the integration of my clients' trauma and pain, this method is legit. This method is real and it works. It's real and it works. It's not easy. It's not easy to face troubling pasts, troubling memories. It is not easy. But when you finally do face and admit them and accept that happened to you, you're now declaring it deserves love. Those aspects of you deserve love by you, by the person that matters the most. You're now declaring through action by your adult you that those aspects, those memories, those painful memories now deserve love and validation and nurturing. By you simply being able to go back there and feel that and literally envision that aspect of you that's a child that experienced whatever it did at whatever age. Let's say you were 3 when you experienced physical abuse. You envision going back there as you're remembering the visions. You're holding that 3-year-old that dealt with physical abuse by the parent. You sit with it, you hold it, you hold space. When you're doing this very act, you're declaring, once again, you're declaring, I love you, and you're worthy to be loved and cared for and nurtured. That's what you're declaring in physical form, in action form, in application form. You're declaring now that part of you deserves love by you being with it. And then you follow with, what do you need to feel better? By me. What do you need to experience to feel better? And it will communicate. That aspect of you that is 2, 3 will communicate and share what it needs from you. It'll come through a thought form or a knowing. Essentially, it's the subconscious, unconscious communicating with the conscious. So, I can't stop emphasizing on the power of what it means to really love yourself and accept yourself and caretake yourself. I get it, there's levels, but if you're that person that's in pain, suffering emotional distress, you're not listening to the whole truth of what you had to go through when you were little. You're not validating what happened to you when you were little. You're not wanting to listen because you're afraid. I get it. You're scared to admit and to see what happened to you and to feel that all over again. Because, essentially, that's what we're running away, is we don't want to feel bad. We don't want to feel, so we're trying to feel better. But when we're outside trying to meet the next, job title, occupation, the next big house, the degrees, and then realize once you get them that it didn't bring you happiness because you thought, only if I get this, only if I achieve that, only if I'm going to be happy. Then you realize that wasn't the case. There's no other place to run anymore or to grab outside of you anymore. No other place. The time has come for you to go inside, to go within, and to listen to the truth of what happened to you. Face the truth Admit to the truth of what happened to you and give it presence, your unconditional presence and love. And I'm telling you, you will transform. But more importantly, you will feel acceptance, true, genuine acceptance and love. Because you're deciding to give love to the aspects that you yourself were trying to disown, push away, reject, because it was too painful to carry them with you or to carry them around. I mean, I get it. We want to cope. I get it that the coping mechanisms helped us. I did it. I get it. But if you're that person that the distress, the emotional distress is very noticeable now, and you can't distract it anymore by outside doings, then I am here to confirm, and I am here to be your messenger and your sign that it's time to go within and listen to the truth of what happened to you. The painful truths that happened to you, and go from there. There's so much to this. I'm working on a course, very affordable course, to take people step by step. It's a whole nother authentic, sustainable level of healing, of integrating. They're not band-aids or coping mechanisms, but it requires you to be courageous enough to sink into your vulnerability. It's scary, but when you do it, oh boy, I'm seeing too many results to say that this is not legit. This method. So, hopefully, you no longer suppress, deny, gaslight those aspects of you that have been in pain, but rather nurture them, reparent them, hold space for them, and ask them ultimately, after you hold space, what they need to feel better, to feel protected, understood, and heard. That's real self-love, real self-acceptance. It's transformative and transcending. So I leave you with that. Sounds like I'm preaching the same story, but guys, there's a reason. We need more of this. We need more of this. So, with all the love and full acceptance, Josie.